Ladies and gentlemen from beyond the great waterfall, welcome. I am Atlas Pleiades. Yet another audio-visual record has been released to the public, aka ReZero Season 4, Episode 13 has arrived. And with it, the continuation of the adaptation of Volume 24 of the light novel. I made the mistake last episode to not mention that it began adapting Volume 24 of the light novel, so I'm correcting that here real quick. Anywho, welcome manga readers, light novel readers, anime onlys. As always, we're just going to jump right in as I continue to try to juggle this schedule of mine in the chaos that is life. As always, we pick up where we left off with Subaru and the others discussing about the possibility of using Reed's Book of the Dead to find some way to pass the second examination. As they discuss this, they debate on if it's even possible for Reed's book to be in there, essentially discussing if he actually is dead or if that's the real living version of Reed upstairs. This is where Nubaru learns roughly half the ages of his current party, Aridna, Shala, and Beatrice being roughly 400 years old, while Amelia is at least roughly around 100. This comes as to a brief surprise to Subaru, but we move on quickly. And they discuss that essentially Reed is not the type of man who would stay in one place for long, and they pretty much universally agree that, yeah, he would have left the tower by now if he was actually a real living person. So they agree to go to the library, and no opening this time. We just cut to the ReZero title card, essentially, and immediately jump right in. And as they climb the stairs to the archive, Subaru notices that Julius has his reservations. However, when pressed, Julius just dismisses it, essentially saying that this is his own problem that he needs to handle. Of course, Subaru doesn't want to just stand for this, and so he has Ram look after the others and continue going up the stairs, while the two of them have a private conversation about what's going on in Julius's mind. Subaru basically states in private with Julius that he is intending for Julius to beat Reed, even though he would rather first at least focus on fixing Julius's wounded heart and taking as long as that he needs to do so. He recognizes that they don't have the time for that, and so he states to Julius, that is one thing and this is another. Subaru understands that the previous Subaru must have done something to Julius to make him uncomfortable, but that's not who this Subaru is right now, and so right at this moment in time, it doesn't matter. Julius is the strongest one in their party right now, and so he has to be the one to beat Reed. And Julius states that he already lost twice, but Subaru counters, basically, so what? I haven't seen you lose, so I actually have no knowledge of you losing. Pressing his fist to Julius's heart, he states that he's not lacking courage. The thing Julius is lacking is the will to win, the determination not to lose. Julius asks him what can make him be so sure, and Subaru basically says that due to his nightly appearance, he couldn't help but feel that way. And so, Julius and him banter for a moment before Subaru checks to see if he's feeling a bit better. And he says he's not so sure about that. After all, Subaru speaks very idealistically, but that is one thing, and this is another. The two of them ascend the stairs to the archive, and it turns out that they actually found Reed's book. Specifically, it being Meili being the one who found him. She tries to play it off as no big deal, but Subaru wants to make sure that her accomplishments are recognized, and he gives her a little pat on the head. Before saying that if they only found it by chance, though, and Aridna finishes his thought of, that means they haven't exactly figured out how to find these books of the dead, or a system in which to do so. It's just still picked at random, unfortunately. As they all discuss who should read the book, They do acknowledge that no one's entirely sure if these books of the dead are responsible for causing Subaru's memory loss directly or not, and what risks that may carry for others to read it, so even with a bit of reluctance, they do all come to an agreement that Subaru should be the one to read Reed's Book of the Dead. After a little bit of some wholesome banter between him and Amelia, Subaru does open up the Book of the Dead, only for Subaru to immediately notice something unusual. The place he found himself in was clearly not Reed's past. He was standing in a bright white place. The surroundings were a vast, endless white void. He had no idea where he might be. He had a body. From that alone, things were already different from what had happened when he read Maylee's book. After all, it was more disjointed thoughts and everything else coming together, almost like he was becoming that person that he had been reading about. Subaru hears a voice behind him, and when he turns to take a look, a girl he had never seen before was standing there in front of him. Beautiful, pale blonde hair, almost like gossamer threads, that was unbelievably long. It spread across the white floor, gathering in a pool of gold at her feet. Big, round blue eyes and limbs, the color of delicate bone china. She was wearing a plain white dress, and everything about her gave off the feeling of translucence. A girl he had never seen before, that was how it should be, but his eyes narrowed upon seeing her. He asks her who she is and where is the place that they're at. She states that this is the final resting place for souls, the cradle of Ode Lagna, the corridor of memories. And she also states that we are the witch cult Sin Archbishop of Gluttony, Rui Arneb. The first question Subaru has here after the other two is exactly what the hell is a witch cult and Archbishop? And Rui explains that the witch cult is a gathering of all the most hated people in this world. Subaru immediately pegs the witch cult for being evil, villainous people, which he chastises him for quote-unquote bullying a little girl. And then he pokes at that we that she keeps referring to, and she states that she, or we, simply just have too many egos filtered in her system, and it's not really clear which one is actually in charge. She states that she has to accept these, though, as they are a gift from her big brother and brother dearest. Subaru states that he's a little jealous that she has other siblings since he's an only child, and she pokes fun at him a little, saying, "Are you absolutely sure? You might have a little sibling by now," which he doesn't seem to like the thought of. So much so that he doesn't even want to imagine it. It's an interesting thought, one that I have actually put some consideration into. After all, he's been isekai'd, and we haven't seen a single thing from his world since, aside from essentially memories, flashbacks. It's entirely possible that his parents could have had another kid after they lost Subaru. As he's turned around, she hugs him from behind, basically saying she understands, that he feels like he was a horrible son to his mom and dad. This immediately bothers Subaru. How would she even know about any of that? But she says, of course we'd understand. We probably understand you better than anybody else could. Mirroring how Subaru said the same thing to Maylee, just a lot less creepily in her instance. Subaru shoves her away, and as she lands on the ground, she states that she just wants to give him peace of mind as she scratches at her own wrist. And if it isn't clear by now, it's a pretty obvious signal to what exactly is going on here. However, she doesn't explain that part right away, instead choosing to elaborate about the corridor of memories. That this place is where souls are filtered, essentially. Like a wash rag, you wash it, dry it, and use it again, which Subaru then pokes at and prods if she's implying that memories are the dirt that one would wash out of a rag, and she basically states if that's how he wants to interpret it, go right ahead. So, that causes Subaru to ask her the question that we probably have on our minds. Was she the one that took his memories? She answers yes before we cut over to Shala, and it seems like the tower is directly under attack from basically every witch beast known to man, as they all charge the tower from every angle. So, Shala uses Infinite Hell Snipe, which just looks really cool as Julius gets ready to defend. Ram and Amelia also go to check on Rem, basically also preparing to defend, and the green room opens up and we see Rai Batan Kaitos has arrived as well. He mocks Ram, speaking like Rem as well here, and overall it looks like the tower is quite ready to be in a pretty dire situation. We return to the Corridor of Memories, where Subaru realizes then that this must be how Subaru got to this area to begin with the day before, having read Reed's Book of the Dead after figuring out the potential that it may have had. Now Rui begins to press him. She answered all of his questions, so now she's got one of her own. How many times after she had eaten him has he gone through this? Has he gone through loops? And she states that don't worry, it'll just be a secret. This won't affect the outside world. And so he tells her that it's been 5 loops so far, which she expresses amazement at before pushing him to the ground and straddling him. She compares her appetite to something similar to lust. Therefore, by that conclusion, that must mean that this is love, right? That she loves him. And that causes him to push her off of him again, this time straddling her and holding her neck with just his forearm, before she says, "Oh, are you gonna strangle us? Wring the neck of a frail little girl like us?" And then she guides his hands to help him do it, wrapping his hands around her neck. Then she states something concerning. If you bring back the memories of Natsuki Subaru, the person you are now will die. His memories would be overwritten and disappear, being replaced by the old Natsuki Subaru. She asks if the old Natsuki Subaru is really worth this Subaru dying, essentially. After all, he's made connections with all these people. He now has a place amongst them, essentially, and the old Natsuki Subaru wasn't exactly the ideal man, after all, right? Rui mocks the old Subaru in his mindset, saying that he basically helped Amelia, helped Beatrice, helped Rem, because oh, what would they ever do without him? Amelia cast aside due to the looks of her matching that of the witch of old, and Beatrice being so lonely, and it was up to Subaru to save her, and Rem devoting all of her love to him only to get nothing in return, and having to essentially please others because she has no self-worth. And she just says, well, that's what Natsuki Subaru thought, after all. He just wanted a sense of superiority, to be able to extend a helping hand to all of the more useful people around him. Is he really worth all that then, if he's like that? She asks him what is he gonna do, and really pushes him to try to kill her. If that's really what he wants to do, then go ahead, consequences be damned, go for it. But he hesitates, and he starts crying. He wants to be with them more. He has found a place amongst them. They have shown their love and kindness to him. He knows that they care, and he doesn't want to just throw that away and disappear. As he says this, she encourages him. She understands, after all. And we see that, you know, the others are fighting to protect him in the tower, essentially. Julius and Shala fighting off the witch beasts, which have now broken in. And Amelia and Ram fighting off Batan Kaitos, riding on Batrash and escaping with Ram. He chooses that he wants to be who he is now. And she says that he finally chose for once and really starts rambling off about Natsuki Subaru, the old one, being the stranger who's closest to you. So you might as well kill him. Go for it. Do it. Actually get rid of him. You're the only Natsuki Subaru in this world. Do it. Kill him. Kill him now. Get this done and over with. Get rid of the Natsuki Subaru of old so you can stay as who you are. But then, footsteps ring out from the corridor. Subaru is of the assumption that it's the Natsuki Subaru of old that has decided to come out and scare him, to fight back. But Rui doesn't detect anybody. She asks that, who is he talking to? They're the only ones here. And someone familiar to us, and even to him, a small extent, even though he doesn't fully recognize her, stands in front of him as he looks up. A blue-haired girl in a maid outfit asks him, why is he trying to choose one or the other? She tells him to stand up. Subaru doesn't understand. Who the hell is she? Stand up. He tries to make excuses for himself. Isn't this enough? Hasn't he done enough? Stand up. It's been so hard and so painful. He grasps his heart and asks why, and she just keeps repeating to him that he needs to stand up. Why does his chest feel so hot? He doesn't know her, but at the same time, it's so familiar. She tells Natsuki Subaru to stand up. She tells Rem's hero to stand up. She tells him if he can stand up, then he needs to go. Go and save all of them. He questions all of who. Who does she mean? And she means everything, everyone, even himself, even the stranger closest to him. He needs to go and save them all. He asks if she really thinks that he can do all that, if he's actually capable of it, and of course she says that he can. After all, he asks, after all what? Explain it to him, make it make sense. And she puts her hand on his heart, stating that he's Rem's hero. This causes something to awaken inside Subaru as he begins to glow faintly within his chest. He grasps what has awakened within him as Rem disappears, and Rui tries to press him further, tries to push him to make that decision, but he said that that's enough. He knows what she's trying to do. She states just one more step, and she could have tore Natsuki Subaru away from Natsuki Subaru. He presses her to explain, and she lashes out, saying, obviously, it's because we can't eat the same person twice. It seems there are some restriction on Gluttony's mechanics, but if she would have been able to separate the old Natsuki Subaru from the new, she could have ate Subaru one more time to eat up the scraps of what was left of Natsuki Subaru. He asks her why, and she just says that they want to be happy. Has he ever felt that life was unfair? You can't choose where you're born, you can't choose your parents, you can't choose your surroundings, you can't choose your future, you can't choose a damn thing. But what if you could? What if you could search through countless lives and be able to pluck the one that'll make you happiest? That's what Rui's trying to do, and until then, she's gonna keep trying. Eating, biting, devouring, everything, until she can find the life that'll make her the most happy. Thing is, no matter how hard she tries, she can't obtain a memory of death. That's where Subaru comes in. She asks him if it's painful or if it feels good. She wants to know what it's like, and of course he responds, well, if you have my memories, shouldn't you know? But she states, those are just memories though, not fresh experiences. She doesn't really get to feel it, just remember it. It's not raw enough, essentially. She wants to be able to experience being able to die over and over and choosing to redo the things in your life. Even if you have all the chances, you could still make a mistake. And so she just asks him bluntly, won't he let them take his life and eat it? And of course, he rejects that, saying that his life, his memories, all of his experiences, they all belong to him. He basically tells her to go to hell before stating that he is Natsuki Subaru, the name that Kenichi Natsuki and Naoko Natsuki gave to him. He insists that no matter what, he is himself. She asks even if that means he could be overwritten and disappears, and he just says, I'm going to show you a magic spell, some magic words that I know. That is one thing, and this is another. She collapses to her knees as she states of her failure and how badly she messed up and how she's just going to have to leave things to Big Brother and Brother Dearest. If that's the case, Subaru needs to get out of there and the exit opens up. And she checks to make sure if he really wants to do that. After all, her brothers have big appetites. And he said it doesn't matter. He remembers their promise between him and that girl. Natsuki Subaru could never possibly forget that. So he looks forward to the day that they can meet each other again. And hopefully next time, she won't use such a harsh voice, but instead, a more gentle one. And we end on the title card of Stand Up. However, we do get an after title card scene here, and it reveals some interesting information. A flashback of Rui's memory of eating Subaru's memories. We see that during her eating his memories, she holds on to something dear, noticing that these memories are dear to Subaru before reaching into her own throat and essentially coughing up a blue ball that I presume to be some form of memory, and likely related to Rem due to the blue color that she tosses away behind her. And then she proceeds to continue to get Subaru's memories, as we see the current Rui basically state that she's going to make Subaru regret this, and that his life belongs to her. And then the episode actually does come to a close. And here are my thoughts, I suppose. A absolutely wonderful episode, genuinely. One of the best episodes this season. Episode 11 was amazing, but so was this one. So much there. Yes, it starts off a little slow, but even then, for the most part, it's really good. We get to see more of Subaru and Julius' interaction, of Subaru encouraging his friend, essentially, to continue to grow stronger emotionally and continue to just grow in general. I love the stuff between Subaru and Julius. It's just so good. It's so peak. And that's like the tamest part of the episode. And then we actually get to see Rui in full action after what happened in season 3 at the end. And she is menacing. I would say that she's one of the most menacing Archbishops aside from maybe Capella, at least in my personal opinion. Her mindset is contradictory to an extent, but also just pure evil. It reminds me a little bit as well of kind of what Subaru was saying about Typhon, about the personification of childhood cruelty, because ultimately, you know, she seems to be stuck here, potentially in this corridor of memories, and if that's the case, there's a good chance she didn't really get to have a proper life, and if so, then no wonder she's looking to choose the life that would make her happiest. She just doesn't understand that that's not going to make her happy. And so she continues to be gluttonous and try all of these memories and lives that her brothers give to her. And then we have the stuff with Rem as well that we finally get to see. You know, Rem is back at least a little bit, giving Subaru the courage to stand up and prove that he is still her hero. And that scene alone damn near made me cry again. This season continues to make me emotional, just like it did when I read the web novel all those years ago and the light novel more recently within the past year. Overall, this episode was wonderful, but there's one more thing that I want to point out that I find that the anime community hasn't really latched onto, or I should say the ReZero community as a whole, that has latched on, that I've latched onto personally, that the rest of the community hasn't really gotten or picked up on. I personally find that this might be more important than it seems. That statement about potentially having a little brother or little sister now that Subaru's been isekai'd. Part of me really thinks there's more to it than that, or rather that Rui might be spot on. The only reason I say that is, simply put, we don't fully know what happened with Subaru's circumstances. We don't know how he got isekai'd. In fact, let's be real, we don't know a whole lot about pre-ReZero Subaru aside from the events of Arc 4 and a little bit more elaboration on him leaving the house the day he seemingly got isekai'd, that we learned about in Season 4 here with the cup, or the mug. I'm just gonna throw my theory out here for the anime community because I've held onto this theory for years. I want you all to pay attention to a very specific character. Y'all remember Aldebaran Al? He's a really, really interesting character, if I do say so myself. Al is seemingly this mysterious character that we know very little about. However, if of course you've watched the Break Time or Chibi episode, specifically the one from Season 3, or of course more likely, probably just heard light novel readers bitch about it, you would know that Al, like Subaru, was isekai'd. But there's another little detail here that I want to point out. Al calls Subaru brother in speech, and even the director's cut's art book actually mentions that detail, which I find suspicious that it's mentioned so explicitly in an art book where they give descriptions of these characters and what they're all about. I find it interesting that that little bit about always calling Subaru bro, essentially since the moment they first met, that being emphasized is really interesting. And yes, I know I'm shoving a theory into this video about a character that doesn't seem very relevant this season. However, for one, it's my video, I do what I want. Second of all, I think it's just something to keep in mind. After all, this season specifically is the perfect opportunity for a bunch of theory crafting. This arc was made for theory crafting with all the lore reveals. However, I find that maybe we should also be looking in a couple other places you wouldn't expect, like this quote by Rui. And all I'm going to say for now on the subject of what she said and what Subaru said, nothing more regarding the theory itself aside from to keep it in mind, is to actually keep in mind and remember what she said here about that. Because it may or may not come up again not too much later into the future. Alright, now enough of my theory ramblings. This video's already getting long enough due to this episode being longer than normal. I've got to talk about the cut content. So let's jump right into that and try to get through it as quick as possible here, even though there is a decent chunk to go through. Actually, how about we jump right off of my little note on this whole sibling thing we got going on that Rui mentioned. The light novel goes to that even further, mainly actually seeing Subaru's thoughts. His parents got along well and were happily married, so something like that might not be a joke, considering the two of them. With me gone, they might start on another kid. Nah, there's no way. If Subaru disappeared, his parents would keep searching until they found him. So he prayed instead for the summoning to another world thing to be a rebirth. If his parents were going to have to experience the pain of forever searching for their lost son, then he would rather have died before being reborn in a new world. That would be far better. So I just find it interesting that Subaru does consider it as a legitimate possibility before quickly dismissing it. Alright, now we're gonna go backwards and work our way through everything. I just figured that'd be a good jumping off point. Another thing that's interesting is there's a little bit more further discussion about why Reed wouldn't sit around and wait, as well as Subaru's acknowledgement of them being a little bit more right about that than they thought. Essentially, Reed doesn't seem like the type to just sit there unless the examination itself is forcing him to. Aridna specifically stating that she'd give him about 3 days before he just decided to leave. And what's interesting is Subaru almost recognizes, or rather pretty much does recognize, that there is a little bit of contradictory information in terms of whether he could be dead or alive, simply because, as we saw in the last loop, you know, Reed did get up and walk around. So it could be possible that he is actually alive. However, of course, most of their evidence points to the alternative, and then they end up finding Reed's book. But it's just an interesting characterization for Reed to keep in mind. Another small detail that I actually really like that I wish they would have kept, since it was just a single line, is that when Subaru pushes everybody up the stairs, essentially saying, hey, let me talk to Julius in private, Aridna actually goes up to him and says into his ear quietly, just asking him to be gentle. That's it. That's all she says. But it shows that she cares about Julius, just like Anna does, in a sense, at least. When Subaru and Rui are talking about the Archbishops and the witch cult as a whole, we get to just learn a little bit more about them. And it reinforces something we already knew, which is that they didn't get along, because Subaru recognizes that there should be 6 more of them. And she basically says, if you count Dear Brother and Brother Dearest, it should be exactly 6, probably. But it went down by 2 recently, so maybe 4. But 2 of them can just die already. So we see that they don't have much camaraderie. And she's like, we're called Archbishops, but in the end, we're still a gathering of outcasts. The titles are different, but we're the same as the witch, which Subaru ends up, you know, pressing on. Witch, together with the witch who's supposed to be super scary. And she states, the witch of jealousy is even nastier than us, so we don't really want to be lumped in with her, though. The others are the same. The witch and the Archbishops, they're different titles, but the same thing. Good for nothings compatible with the witch factors, just called different things in different times and places. Essentially stating that the Archbishops are the witches of this world's time. Something I find kind of interesting, even though overall majority-wise, they seem to be weaker counterparts to some extent, barring Regulus, I would argue, and maybe Sirius. I would argue that Regulus, physically at least, is stronger than Echidna, but at the same time, he doesn't have her magic prowess. But we also don't fully know the extent to which her authority manifested. So we can't say for certain if Regulus's greed authority was, you know, more or less powerful than hers at this current moment in time. But it is something to think about. I'm just going to look over any other content that might have been cut that I forgot about. One example being, let's see. So Subaru, for one, acknowledges that he hasn't really come up with a system to figure out how to actually sort through the books of the dead. And that even, for instance, looking through Meili's memories, and he even asks Meili directly, you know, there were a bunch of books that he had looked through, but it doesn't seem like there was fully a system established that he has memory of. However, the original Subaru might have had a system, and also that Subaru would, if he could, potentially find Elsa's book just for Meili's sake. So the one last bit of detail that I want to focus on that was cut, that I just find funny, is that at the end, right before he leaves, Subaru does just straight up flip her off. It straight up says, Subaru flipped her off as she made an infuriated face, after he had said to her, get some braces, asshole, which I find a little entertaining. Now, I do want to point out that some things seem to be rearranged, although my memory's hazy as I haven't read Arc 6 in about a year-ish, give or take, maybe half a year. So my memory's a little hazy on the details of the later volumes. I do reread before I make each of these videos, but I only reread the section that the volume pertains to. But there does seem to be some reordering between the events of what goes on in the Corridor of Memories, like with the ball that Rui spits up. I don't fully remember that being in the light novel at all. So either that got moved around or that's an anime original thing. I will say the cuts to seeing like the tower under attack is seemingly an anime-only thing to my knowledge. So that's pretty cool. I really liked that, especially seeing the Infinite Hell Snipe looked really fucking cool. Getting to see all these witch beasts, which if you remember when I discussed the ending, we see a bunch of witch beasts we've never seen before or have ever been mentioned before. Now we actually get to see them in action, even if most of them are kind of just floating or slithering towards, you know, the tower and not necessarily doing anything on their own. It's still cool to see them in motion, I suppose. So, yeah, the only other thing to mention is that light, all I'm going to say, because I don't want to spoil it for people, is that light that appears when, you know, Rem tells him to stand up and he feels it. If you remember from earlier in the series, you might be able to pick up on what that means. That's all I can say. But yeah, that's all I have to say about that. God damn, this video was kind of long, but that's fair. The episode was longer and I had a lot more passion in talking about this one. This episode was really good overall. I loved absolutely every bit of it, and most of the cuts I didn't really have a problem with, aside from, you know, mainly the discussion of the witch cult I think would have been cool to leave in, and the detail about what Subaru himself thought in his head about his parents having another kid. But it still does remain to be seen fully how relevant that may or may not be. It just is mainly my interest because of that theory that I made, which I did make a video on. It's just maybe not good for anime onlys to watch unless they don't care about being spoiled. But I did make a video on my theory about Al being potentially Subaru's brother. So I'm going to stop mentioning that for now until it's relevant again in the series where I can bring it up. But yeah, this episode was great. Not much else to say aside from I really loved the emotional bits with Julius and of course Rem, and also just Rui's voice actress killed it. She did such a good job. I loved her in this. She did wonderful. Anyway, that's all I've got to say. So thank you all for watching. I look forward to seeing you guys in the next episode when we get to see what's going on within the tower as, you know, Subaru leaves the corridor of memories. And from what I'm hearing, we've got some action scenes coming up here pretty soon, so time to get excited for some more Peak ReZero. I will talk to you guys all later, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.